I never thought I'd return to my old house, let alone live there again. But life doesn't care about your plans. Just 1 week after graduating, I watched my dream of independence fall apart faster than it took me to receive my diploma. It wasn't because I was unemployed or lacked skills. Some things you just can't predict, like how my parents turned a temporary stay into a sweet trap, wrapped in sacrifice and family obligation. The longer I lived there, the more I realized. Sometimes, the person who manipulates you best shares your last name. I'm Sarah, 23 years old, a fresh graduate with a bachelor's in business administration from the University of Michigan. After graduation, I came back home to Ann Arbor, planning to stay for about 3 months to save on rent, before moving out once I was financially stable. And at first, everything seemed reasonable. Just a week later, I landed a job at a local marketing company called Lexington & Co. with a starting salary of $48,000 a year. Not bad for someone fresh out of college, especially with performance bonuses. I remember that first night after signing the contract. My mom made my favorite casserole, and my dad popped open a cheap bottle of red wine to celebrate. I even said, excitedly, "I'll just stay for around 3 months, save a little, then I'll move into my own place. Definitely before winter." The room fell noticeably quiet. The clinking of silverware stopped mid-air. My mom put her knife down and gave me that look I knew too well. The look of, get ready to hear something you don't want to. "Sarah," my mom said, her voice annoyingly sweet. "You know my back's been awful lately, I can only work part-time at the library. And your dad?" She glanced at him. "Things at the factory aren't stable either. I heard they're planning more layoffs." My dad gave a slight cough and chimed in. "She's right, the economy's rough these days, we really need your help with the bills at least for now. Your mom's got a point. Staying here rent-free, helping out the family, isn't that more practical?" I looked down at my now cold casserole. Something tightened in my chest. A mix of guilt, anger, and feeling stuck. I couldn't say no, they were my parents. And I didn't have a solid plan for moving out yet. I nodded and forced a smile. "Then I'll stay, a little longer." From that day on, life settled into a quiet, steady routine. I worked 8 to 5, came home, and most of my paycheck went straight into covering bills. Electricity, water, internet, gas, even groceries if mom said her back hurt too much to shop. Each month, I automatically transferred more than half my salary into a shared account my mom set up to manage the family's finances. I didn't complain. At least not in the beginning. Mom always had dinner ready, the house was clean, and everything seemed orderly. I kept telling myself this was temporary, that I was doing the right thing. But slowly, I started noticing something odd. Every time I brought up moving out, both my mom and dad would either dodge the topic or guilt-trip me. One time, I casually mentioned checking out a small apartment near downtown, and my mom sighed and muttered, "I wonder who'll help me pay next month's bills if you leave." And just like that, I became the financial backbone of the house without even realizing it. I didn't go out, didn't splurge, just tried to save. But every month, looking at my account felt like someone was quietly draining my wallet. I was a hard-working, independent, goal-driven young woman. And yet, at 23, I still slept in my childhood bedroom and avoided booking a session with a financial advisor because I was scared to admit I didn't have enough money. Worst of all, my parents didn't see any problem with it. To them, I was the convenient child. No demands, no complaints, no trouble, unlike others. I didn't yet know how that other person would come into the story. But I knew one thing, that fake peace wasn't going to last long. I still remember the day everything snapped back into the familiar order of my family. The day my sister, Rebecca, suddenly showed up after more than a year of radio silence. The door barely opened before my mom flew out like a gust of wind, her voice sky-high with excitement. "Oh my God, Rebecca, my baby!" My mom hugged her like she'd never let go, eyes sparkling like she'd just met a Hollywood star. My dad wasn't far behind, dragging in her suitcase and asking eagerly, "Was traffic bad? Where are Daniel and the kids? They're probably out in the car, right? I stood on the staircase, watching it all without saying a word. They didn't see me. Or more accurately, didn't bother to notice I was there. Rebecca, 31, had everything my parents idolized: a model family with a software engineer husband, 2 doll-like kids, and a suburban life in Chicago that my mom often gushed about with thinly veiled envy. "We're just staying a few days, figured the kids could visit Grandma and Grandpa." She beamed like the world revolved around her family. My mom sighed lovingly. "Oh my God, you really are the most thoughtful child. So considerate, so responsible, so maternal. Unlike some people who only know how to bury themselves in work." That last part, of course, didn't need a name. I swallowed the lump in my throat and turned back to my room. The atmosphere in the house changed instantly after Rebecca and the kids arrived. Every meal revolved around what she liked to eat, whether the kids could eat it, whether Daniel got his nap, and a million little details my parents treated like national news. My sister talked about how Lucas, her 5-year-old son, could now write letters with crayons, and the whole family applauded like it was a groundbreaking discovery. I once earned a full-ride honors scholarship to college, but when I brought the confirmation letter home, my mom just glanced at it and said flatly, "Good, at least it saves the family some money." I never forgot that feeling. Every time I tried to prove my worth, all I got were indifferent looks. Rebecca, on the other hand, just had to frown and someone would catch her. I used to think I just wasn't good enough. Back in high school, I studied like someone possessed, because I knew if I didn't earn a scholarship, I wouldn't be able to go to college. While my sister went to private school, had tutors, expensive SAT prep, I had a wobbly wooden desk, library books, and sheer stubborn determination. I remember once, I won first place in the statewide debate competition and brought home a shiny gold medal. I was so excited, thinking this time they'd be proud. But when I walked into the kitchen, my parents were chatting about how Rebecca had been chosen as the lead for her postnatal yoga class. My mom glanced at the medal, then turned back and said, "Rebecca's always had leadership skills. That girl was born to shine." I wanted to scream, to smash that stupid medal right there on the dining table. But instead, I just stood there, silent, like some forgotten piece of furniture. Rebecca stayed with us for 3 days this week. During those 3 days, I was nothing more than a ghost, drifting through my own home. In the mornings, I dodged the cheerful laughter in the living room. At night, I ate alone in the kitchen, while the rest of the family gathered around to rewatch videos of Lucas counting to 10. I wasn't surprised anymore, just tired. My mom no longer asked how work was. My dad stopped discussing household matters with me. Every decision was now consulted with Rebecca, the person who had been back for less than 72 hours. I tried texting Mom. "Mom, I'm thinking of applying to rent an apartment near work. Do you think that's okay?" She read the message, but didn't reply. 3 hours later, I heard her cheerful voice from the living room. "Rebecca, why don't you stay a few more days? It's been so lovely having the whole family together." I bit my lip, turned back to my room, and slammed the door shut. I lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling like I was living in a play where I'd never been given any lines. I didn't know what more I had to do to make them see me as a person, not a money machine, not a shadow behind their golden child spotlight. But I knew one thing: every bottled-up rage has an expiration date, and mine was getting close. I was washing dishes after dinner when Mom's phone rang on the kitchen table. She had the speaker on. As soon as she saw Rebecca's name, she hit answer like it was a call from the White House. "Rebecca, what's wrong, honey?" I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but my sister's sobs echoed loud and clear from the phone on the table. "Mom, Mike got laid off. They shut down the company, no warning. We don't have enough for rent this month. We don't know where to go." Mom immediately jumped up, her voice full of panic and worry. "Oh my God, how could this happen? No, Rebecca, calm down. Come home. There's always room for you here." My heart dropped to the floor. I wiped my hands, stepped out of the kitchen, trying to stay calm. If she and her family move in, Then I'll start looking for a place of my own," I said, keeping my voice neutral. Mom turned to me, her face shifting from concern to cold in an instant. "What did you just say? Sarah, how can you be so selfish?" Dad walked in just then, catching the last part. He nodded sternly, like I had just dishonored 3 generations of ancestors. "Rebecca is going through the hardest time of her life. As her sister, you should support her. This is everyone's home, not just yours." "But this house only has 3 bedrooms," I argued. "If they move in, where is everyone supposed to sleep?" My mom lowered her voice, trying to sweet-talk me in that way that always gave me chills. "The kids need space to play, and Rebecca and Mike need a proper bed. Your room is the biggest, so it makes the most sense for the kids. As for you, you can move into the old storage room. I'll help you tidy it up. It's just temporary." I stood there, frozen. That storage room was so cramped you could barely turn around, let alone live in it. But the intensity of my parents' reaction made it clear. My opinion had never been something worth considering. And sure enough, that's how it went. That weekend, Rebecca, Mike, Lucas and Lily officially moved in. 3 SUVs packed with luggage blocked the driveway. While I was carrying boxes of my belongings into the tiny storage room, my parents were busy taking photos of the big family reunion, looking like they were hosting a summer festival. My room, the one I used to call my only remaining personal space, became the kids' playroom. They repainted the walls pastel blue, hung cartoon posters, and casually installed a baby monitor camera. And me? I was shoved into a tiny, leaky room with no windows, just big enough for a twin bed and an old desk from middle school. No closet. I had to use cardboard boxes to store my clothes. The first day after my sister's family had fully settled in, I came home from work and saw Rebecca lounging on the couch watching Netflix, feet up on the coffee table. Lily was tearing apart one of my file folders like a toy, and Lucas was messing with the printer in my workspace. Sorry, my storage room. "Lucas, get out of there right now," I shouted, rushing in. Rebecca looked up from the screen, indifferent. I told him he could just play for a bit. What's the big deal? He's a kid. I didn't respond. I picked up the folder, important documents I'd prepared for a big project next week, now scribbled all over with highlighter. That night I planned to bring it up during dinner, but before I could open my mouth, my mom spoke first. "Sarah, make sure you stay home tomorrow to help your sister. Mike has a job interview, and Rebecca has a dentist appointment." I stared at her. "You mean, skip work to babysit?" "It's not that big of a deal," my dad chimed in. "Just one day. Everyone in the family has to make sacrifices." I almost threw my fork at the table. "I'm not a nanny, I work too. I'm exhausted too. Why does everyone just assume I'm the one who has to carry everything?" Rebecca smirked. "You're always so emotional. Maybe you should learn to control your feelings if you ever want to be a mother." That comment hit me like a slap in the face. I stood up and left the table, ignoring my dad's disappointed look and my mom's dramatic sigh. That night, I sat curled up in the tiny room, the dim yellow light making everything feel even more suffocating. I stared at the old suitcase in the corner. For the first time in months, I seriously thought, maybe it's time to pack everything and disappear. I got the utility bill on a Tuesday night. Holding that flimsy piece of paper in my hand, I stood frozen in the kitchen. The number in the bottom right corner nearly took my breath away. Almost double last month's. I glanced toward the living room, where my mom was doing puzzles with Lily and Lucas was watching cartoons on the TV that stayed on from morning till night. The lights in the house were never off for more than 3 minutes. The rice cooker, washer, oven, heater, everything running full blast like we were feeding an army. Which, I guess, we kind of were. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lying in the cramped room with streetlights seeping in through the door crack, I tried to calculate every dollar in my head. My salary hadn't changed, but the expenses had skyrocketed, like someone had opened the faucet and let it pour unchecked. The next morning, I got up early, made breakfast, poured coffee, and waited for everyone to sit down. Once they were settled around the table, I took a deep breath and said, "We need to talk about the electricity, water, and other living expenses. Has anyone noticed the bill this month nearly doubled?" The table fell silent for a few seconds, then Rebecca gave a little laugh. "Oh, Sarah, you're so uptight. That's totally normal when there are more people in the house. Kids use more water, the washing machine's going non-stop. You can't expect costs to stay the same, right?" "No," I said firmly. "But I also can't keep paying for everything by myself. I only plan to stay here for 3 months to save money, not to support a 5-person household." My mom sighed and put her spoon down, like I had just declared I was dropping out of college to join a cult. "What do you mean by that? The family's going through a tough time. You should feel proud to be able to help." "Mom, I've covered most of the bills for nearly a year, and now I'm expected to pay for utilities used by 5 other people?" I could feel the heat rising in my face. Has anyone even asked me if I can afford it? Has anyone offered to share the cost? My dad frowned, voice cold as steel. "Sarah, families are supposed to support each other, not nickel and dime like strangers. You're being very selfish." Rebecca crossed her arms, her eyes full of judgment. "You're working and have income. Mike and I just lost our main source of income and have 2 kids to care for. Can't you be a little more compassionate?" I let out a bitter laugh. Soft-hearted? I'd been soft-hearted all year, and what did I get in return? Disrespect and the assumption that I'd carry everything on my own. No one said a word. I stood up, leaving my untouched toast behind, feeling like I'd just run a mental marathon. The weekend hit like a slap in the face. On Friday, just as I stepped through the door after a long day at work, Rebecca was already waiting, purse in hand. "Thank goodness you're back. Mike and I have plans to meet friends in Grand Rapids. We'll be back Sunday night, okay? The kids' dinner is prepped, and the rest, you know the drill." My eyes widened. "You mean, I'm watching the kids by myself the whole weekend?" "You say that like it's something new," she shrugged. "You do it every weekend anyway." "You've never once asked me," I said through gritted teeth. "You and Mike just leave, and I'm expected to sacrifice my time, energy, and sanity just because I'm the more available one?" Rebecca sighed, acting patient. "You're overreacting again? We're family. We help each other in hard times." My mom poked her head out from the kitchen. "Sarah, please don't cause tension. Rebecca and Mike are trying to get their lives back on track. This is the time you should be supporting them." I looked around. No one said a word. No one stood up for me. Once again, I was the difficult one, for simply not wanting to be a servant in my own home. That night I lay in my room, listening to Lily scream because she lost her cartoon channel, while Lucas banged toys against the wall. I was overwhelmed by responsibilities that weren't mine, and the deafening silence from those who should have understood me the most. I realized I was slowly losing myself. And more I understood one thing: there are limits to how much someone can endure for the sake of family. And I was almost at mine. I had just folded the last thick sweater when loud knocks hit the door. Before I could respond, Rebecca barged in. Her face was tight with annoyance, arms crossed. "What are you doing?" I glanced at the duffel bag by the bed and answered calmly. "I'm packing. I'm going skiing with some coworkers tomorrow. We're heading to Crystal Mountain, just for the weekend." Rebecca froze for a second, then her voice shot up. "What? You're leaving? What about Lucas and Lily?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "They're your kids, not mine. I don't owe you any weekends, especially not after months of babysitting without you asking once." "You can't go!" Rebecca almost screamed. "Mike and I have plans to attend Aunt Linda's birthday in Grand Haven. Mom and Dad are going too. You're the only one who can stay with the kids." I raised my eyebrow, voice icy. "Oh, so the whole family made plans without bothering to tell me. Good to know." Rebecca stormed out, shouting down the hallway. "Mom, Dad, Mike, you need to hear what Sarah is saying." Less than 2 minutes later, all 4 of them crowded into my tiny room. Dad leaned against the doorframe, Mom crossed her arms like she was about to call a family meeting. And Mike stood there, with his usual blank stare. Mom spoke first, voice stern. "Sarah, I heard you're planning to go away this weekend?" "That's right," I said flatly. "But the whole family agreed you'd stay and watch the kids," Mom snapped, her face flushed with anger. "You can't change your mind at the last minute like this." "Agreed?" I repeated. Who exactly agreed, because I sure wasn't invited to that conversation. "We all thought it was the most reasonable plan," Dad added, his tone like a judge delivering a sentence. "Rebecca and Mike have important things to do, and you're just going for fun." I squinted, feeling heat rise in my chest. There it is again. I'm always the one expected to sacrifice. My weekends don't matter, my feelings are invisible, and the responsibility always lands on me. I've babysat, paid most of the bills, lived in a cramped room, and endured all of this without a single thank you. And the one time I take a break, the whole house acts like I've committed treason? Rebecca shrieked, her voice sharp. "You're so selfish, you never think about anyone else, just yourself. No wonder you're still single." I looked up, eyes like blades. "And I'm not surprised you keep dodging the responsibilities of being a mother while expecting the whole world to cater to you." My mom slammed her hand against the doorframe. "If you walk out of this house tomorrow, don't bother coming back." I stood still for a few seconds. Then I laughed. For the first time in months, I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was time. "Thank you, Mom. I've been waiting a long time to hear that." I rolled my suitcase out of the room, walking past 4 stunned faces. At the front door, I turned back. "Oh, and by the way, starting this month I won't be paying any more bills. I don't live here anymore, and I have no financial obligation to any of you. Good luck with the electricity, water, internet, and groceries." "Sarah!" My mom shrieked, her voice panicked. "You're joking, right?" "No, Mom, this time, I've never been more serious." I pulled out my phone and called Ashley, my best friend from work. "Hey Ash, is that room at your place still available?" "Of course," she said cheerfully. "Want to come over now?" "I'll be there in 30 minutes. I hung up, opened the door, and walked out, leaving behind the shouting, the anger, and the panic that I no longer felt guilty about. Driving to Ashley's house, I felt a strange sense of relief. Like for the first time in my life, I was allowed to exhale without being interrupted. The next day I stood in the snow at Crystal Mountain, my cheeks red from the cold, a hot cup of cocoa in my hands, and the sound of my friends laughing around me. No screaming kids. No forced responsibilities. No coldness disguised as love. And most importantly, no one treating me like I was just extra baggage. I arrived at Ashley's place just before midnight, exhausted but oddly at peace. She opened the door with a big hug and the only words I needed to hear. "I'm so glad you got out." I set my suitcase down and exhaled like I'd just escaped a toxic cloud. No more yelling, no more condescending looks, no more words that made me feel like a terrible person just because I dared to live for myself. Ashley let me stay in the small guest room with a folding bed. It was better than any room I'd ever had at my parents' house. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight pouring through the curtains. Silence. No kids screaming. No cartoon TV blaring since 6 a.m. I made coffee, took a sip while it was still hot, and for the first time in months, I didn't have to chase after children to turn off the faucet or scrub marker drawings off the wall. I didn't respond to any texts or calls for the next 2 days. My phone buzzed constantly. Mom, Rebecca, Dad, even Mike called. Every time, I just glanced at the screen and ignored it. I didn't need to hear another round of guilt, tears, or blame. I'd had enough of that my whole life. On Sunday night, I finally opened my phone to check the messages. Not because I felt guilty. Just because I wanted to see how far they'd take their victim narrative. "Ma, Sarah, how long do you plan to keep this up?" Aunt Linda asked all through the party why Rebecca wasn't there. I had to lie to save face. "Rebecca, I can't believe how ungrateful you are. Mike and I trusted you, the kids did too. Now Lily won't stop crying for Auntie Sarah. Hope you're proud of hurting a 5-year-old. Dad, your mom's been a wreck all day. If you treat your own family like this, who will you have in your life later on? I read each message, feeling nothing but tired. No apologies, no recognition that I'd been drained dry. Just blame, guilt-tripping, and expectations Xing same as always. I opened a new message. Not to send, just to let it out. I didn't walk away. I just stopped letting people use me. I didn't leave my family. I left the people who never treated me like I was part of it. From now on, I'm living for myself. I deleted it, then blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Rebecca, Mike. Then I blocked them on social media. Facebook, Instagram, even LinkedIn. I didn't need them watching me anymore, and I definitely didn't want to see them. 3 days later, I started apartment hunting. With my salary no longer drained by shared expenses, I could finally afford a small but cozy place, quiet, and full of light. The apartment I chose was on the east side of town, just a 15-minute drive from work. It had a balcony, some greenery, and most importantly, no one in my family knew the address. On move-in day, I only brought the essentials: clothes, my laptop, a few personal items, and a handful of my favorite books. I left everything else behind, both literally and figuratively. I installed the curtains myself, put up the bookshelf, and hung a few small paintings. That first night in my new apartment, I lay on a brand new mattress, looked up at the ceiling, and told myself, I did it. I got out. No one knocked on my door asking me to cook, no crying, no criticism. Just the soft sound of jazz from Spotify and the wind rustling through the window. I didn't tell anyone back home where I lived, and I had no plans to go back. Even though my mom once warned me that if I left I should never come back to this house, I now felt fine with that, maybe even grateful. That house was never a place I truly belonged. Now I was building one of my own, a real home. Every time a text came from an unknown number, my heart would still skip a beat for a second. But then I'd exhale when it turned out to be just a promo or a message from a friend. My family slowly faded from my screen and from my mind. I knew they wouldn't let go easily. There'd be attempts to pull me back, pleas, blame, even tears. But this time, I was ready. Because now, I was no longer the Sarah who just endured. I was Sarah, the one who dared to stand up, walk away, and live her own life. That first week in my new apartment felt like a waking dream. Every morning, I woke up to birdsong instead of screaming children. No one pounded on my door asking me to come watch the kids. No one gave orders, made snide remarks, or criticized me. I made coffee, sat on the balcony, watched sunlight spill over the trees, and for the first time I felt true peace. The apartment is small, but every corner has my imprint. Olive green walls I chose myself. A desk placed by the window for natural light. A beanbag I can sink into for hours with a book. And the fridge, stocked only with food I like, not snacks for the kids or my sister's pointless diet meals. I had truly cut ties. Not just blocking my parents' Rebecca and Mike's numbers. I deleted them from my contacts and blocked them on every social platform. No more of Mom's vague, guilt-baiting Facebook posts. No more fake family reunion stories. No more midnight messages from Rebecca asking if I'd changed my mind. No. I've had enough time to think. 23 years of it. And now, it's time I live for myself. Every evening after work, I came home, lit a scented candle, played soft jazz, and either read a book or video called Ashley, my best friend who took me in when I had nowhere else to go. Some nights I just sat there in silence, doing nothing. But that silence no longer felt heavy. It was the kind I used to crave back in that old house. A place full of noise, yet no one truly heard me. I began to feel like I was reclaiming the parts of myself that had been stolen. Every meal I cooked, every bill I paid, every decision I made without asking for permission, reminded me, This is the life I deserve to live. But my family didn't give up easily. Each week, strange numbers still called. A few times, I answered, only to hear my mother's breathless voice on the other end. "Sarah, are you really cutting us off? You're my daughter." I responded with just one sentence. "If you truly saw me as your daughter, I would have been treated differently." Then I hung up. Another time, I got a handwritten letter, old school style. Rebecca's handwriting. 2 pages full of guilt-tripping and fake tears. She wrote about how much Lily missed me, how Lucas kept asking, "Where did Auntie Sarah go?" and how Mike was stressed about money. I read the whole thing, then folded it neatly and dropped it in the trash without hesitation. I don't hate them. But I no longer allow them to control my life. One Saturday afternoon, I sat down with a new notebook and wrote a few lines. It wasn't a diary, more like a declaration. I will only allow people who respect me to exist in my life. Friends, co-workers, or family. If they don't understand boundaries, they don't belong in my journey. I've been called selfish, ungrateful, a traitor. But one thing I know for sure. No one has the right to demand I sacrifice myself for their selfishness and still expect me to be thankful. If one day my mother or my family realizes that love doesn't come with manipulation, that helping doesn't mean exploiting, that blood ties are not an excuse to mistreat someone, then maybe I'll speak. But only when they're ready to listen to me as an adult. Not as a daughter expected to sacrifice in silence. For now, I choose silence, independence, and the freedom I claimed, not through tears, but with courage. That night, I sat on my balcony, wrapped in a blanket, holding a warm cup of tea. Streetlights reflected off the window, soft music in my ears, and the smell of waffles from the restaurant next door filled the air. I smiled to myself. Not because I had won, but because I had finally quit a game I should have never been forced to play. Sarah's story is a powerful reminder that family is no excuse for manipulation or exploitation. No matter the label of family, if there's no respect for boundaries or individual worth, the relationship can drain you until you lose yourself. Sarah found the courage to walk away from the cycle of unconditional sacrifice, and chose freedom and self-respect, instead of silent suffering. Sometimes, loving yourself is the only way to truly live. And begin again. What do you think about Sarah's choice? Was she being too harsh, or was it exactly what she needed to protect herself? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more emotional real-life stories and deep lessons on family.